The 28th of January, 2026. London, in a news cycle already overflowing with major stories, a royal controversy of staggering scale has suddenly detonated, triggering outrage, disbelief, and swift internal maneuvering within Buckingham Palace. Several senior-level sources allege that Meghan Markle has attempted to coerce the British royal family in an effort to secure her return to the institution. At the center of the claim is a calculated media maneuver, an alleged threat involving fabricated video material aimed at Lady Louise Windsor, 22, and her long-term partner, technology investor Felix Clamp. The moment of release appears deliberate. The revelation surfaced just 2 days after Netflix discreetly halted Meghan's forthcoming documentary series indefinitely, citing serious concerns over content authenticity. At the same time, turmoil has reportedly intensified within the Arkwell Foundation. No fewer than 3 high-ranking executives, including the chief strategy officer and the head of legal affairs, have resigned, prompting widespread speculation about a deeper structural breakdown behind the scenes. What has most unsettled royal observers, however, is the personal impact on Lady Louise Windsor herself. Known as an emerging figure within the monarchy, Louise has long been respected for her restraint and steadfast loyalty. Palace aides now say she has entered a complete media shutdown, deactivating social platforms and withdrawing from all scheduled public appearances, including a highly anticipated joint engagement alongside her mother Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh. In a confidential message circulated among royal advisors, Sophie reportedly made her position clear. This has moved beyond personal conflict. According to those familiar with the memo, she described the situation as an attack on the integrity of a young woman whose only record is one of service and devotion to her family. Palace insiders add that Princess Anne, Louise's aunt and a figure renowned for her uncompromising resolve, responded immediately, summoning a late-night session with legal counsel and intelligence advisors. Princess Catherine is also said to be working closely with Anne and Sophie, providing direct support to Louise while helping coordinate a broader institutional response. One source characterized the alliance as a formidable blend of maternal protection and strategic authority. Further details emerged through an exclusive legal channel close to the situation. According to that intermediary, Meghan allegedly delivered her demands via a confidential, time-sensitive email sent on the 23rd of January to a representative linked to Princess Anne's security coordination team. The message reportedly laid out a stark ultimatum: restore access to VIP-level security arrangements, reinstate royal patronage status, and publicly correct what she described as defamatory narratives, or she would move forward with her own corrections, including unreleased material involving Lady Louise Windsor and Mr. Clamp. That material is now believed to consist of a manipulated video depicting Felix Clamp in what appears to be a compromising encounter with an unidentified individual. Sources briefed on the footage say it is disturbingly realistic, yet forensic analysis has concluded it was synthetically produced with the explicit purpose of deception. Public awareness of the alleged threat exploded after leaked clips from Meghan's recorded the 25th of January interview with Us podcaster Talia Rowe surfaced ahead of its scheduled the 1st of March release. In the segment, Meghan offers a restrained smile before remarking that certain people within the institution, young women included, have been shielded for too long while others were discarded. Perhaps, she adds, it's time the world witnesses what happens when the fabricated finally cracks. The implication ignited an immediate backlash. Online discourse surged, with hashtags centered on protecting Lady Louise dominating global trends within hours. By early morning, more than 130,000 posts had appeared under variations of Number Protect Louise and Number Royal Strike Back. A widely shared comment from former royal correspondent Georgia Clane summed up the mood: this is no longer Meghan versus the monarchy. This is a deliberate smear aimed at Lady Louise. If this doesn't constitute blackmail, what does? Those close to Arkwell suggest Meghan's actions reflect mounting desperation as commercial partnerships falter and public opinion continues to sour. A sharply critical New Yorker piece published last week, The Sussex Collapse, Power, PR, and the Fall of a Duchess, claimed her Spotify agreement unraveled amid disputes over narrative control, while her children's publishing project with Penguin Random House has been placed on indefinite hold. Financial pressures are also intensifying. Recently declassified figures indicate that Meghan and Harry's annual security expenditures now exceed $94 million, with several unpaid invoices reportedly flagged by two California-based firms. UK security analyst Philip Wesson offered a blunt assessment. She's cornered. What we're seeing is an attempt to weaponize the last leverage available, perceived access to institutional secrets, and reputational damage. Palace officials confirm that Princess Anne is personally overseeing developments and has ordered an immediate forensic examination of the alleged video evidence. Senior High Court barristers have already been engaged. A source close to Anne says her position is unequivocal. There will be no surrender to coercion. Should Meghan release the material, the response will be swift, full civil and criminal action pursued internationally if necessary. Duchess Sophie has reportedly commissioned private investigators to track the origins of the manipulated footage, while Princess Catherine is leading a reputational containment strategy designed to stop misleading narratives from taking hold ahead of the podcast's release. As for Lady Louise, those close to her describe her as deeply shaken yet unwavering. She is currently receiving continuous emotional support at Bagshot Park, where Sophie has cancelled all personal engagements to remain at her daughter's side. At the same time, Catherine and Anne are said to be planning a coordinated public appearance, intended to send a clear message of unity and condemnation against any attempt at reputational harm. What was initially framed as an intimate discussion centered on resilience and womanhood has since evolved into what insiders now characterize as one of the most calculated and potentially hazardous media maneuvers Meghan Markle has undertaken. The interview, filmed on the 25th of January at the Belvedere Hotel in Santa Monica, was designed as the cornerstone of Meghan's podcast revival. The project, backed by a reported $4.2 million production agreement with Goldwire Studios and titled Reflections, was scheduled to launch its first episode in March. However, early leaks have ignited intense reaction across both the palace and media circles. Sources now say the episode functioned not merely as a personal exposé, but as a deliberate ignition point. In a privately screened 28-minute edited segment viewed by executives and select high-profile attendees, including fashion industry leader Genevieve Dorsey and Hollywood activist Louise Windsor, Meghan spoke with composed precision. Yet beneath the polished delivery, observers noted a marked shift in tone. Around the 19-minute mark, she leaned forward and remarked, "It's easy to brand a woman as difficult when she defends herself. But what of those who stay hidden behind royal walls, spinning myths out of fragility? I'm not the only one who knows what happens behind the curtain. I may simply be the only one willing to say it aloud." Though no names were mentioned, body language specialists and royal analysts agree the implication was unmistakable, pointing toward Lady Louise Windsor and those within her immediate circle. Moments later, Meghan added another cryptic line. "When certain truths come to light, people won't fault the outsiders anymore. They'll ask why the silence was so well financed." That reference to funded silence has been widely interpreted as an indirect accusation aimed at Princess Anne and Duchess Sophie, suggesting without explicit claim that royal resources were used to protect Louise's reputation. Palace sources now confirm that the royal household has obtained a detailed forensic report on the fabricated video, referred to internally under the codename Project Oakridge in legal documentation. The clip allegedly depicts Felix Clamp, Louise's longtime partner, inside a subterranean bar in Berlin, appearing to engage in inappropriate contact with a red-haired woman in a private room. However, evidence shows Felix was not in Berlin on the date the footage claims to show. Metadata analysis reveals frame repetition and pixel mapping consistent with advanced synthetic compositing. In addition, time-stamped GPS records from Felix's smartwatch place him at a closed-door investment forum in Cambridge that same evening. Royal Legal Counsel Sir Alaric Thorne has already submitted a preliminary injunction request to the High Court's Privacy Division, A senior royalist expert described the fabrication as a third-generation malicious deepfake, technically sophisticated and nearly impossible to distinguish from authentic footage. This isn't about convincing people something is real, explained behavioral media strategist Dr. Lysandra Ng. It's about introducing uncertainty. Meghan doesn't need widespread belief. She only needs doubt around Louise's character to linger long enough for her own image to recover attention and sympathy. That sympathy, analysts say, may now be financially critical, with Netflix shelving Meghan's documentary series, Spotify declining renewal, and Arkwell's executive leadership resigning en masse. Industry observers warn that her brand valuation is in steep of Emerald Shield, a legacy palace protocol designed to neutralize reputational threats. The measures include royal image takedown enforcement, coordinated Ziyuk legal action, counter-narrative content partnerships, and advanced digital forensics to trace and dismantle manipulated media assets. Clarence House also directed royal legal teams to pursue both civil and criminal avenues against any distribution partners found to be knowingly hosting maliciously altered material. Sources say Princess Anne, already leading the palace's digital integrity defenses, received private thanks from King Charles for her foresight. She had reportedly cautioned months earlier that Meghan could escalate toward reputational hostage tactics. Prince William, meanwhile, was assigned responsibility for coordinating protective alignment measures for Louise, Sophie, and other younger working royals considered vulnerable to media destabilization. A source close to William described his response as precise rather than emotional. William wasn't angry, the source said. He was surgical. If she touches Louise, he told aides, she forfeits every future negotiation. Behind closed doors, a series of coordinated outreach calls followed to Netflix's legal department, Spotify's trust and safety unit, Arkwell's New York media representation, and the Goldman Sachs Trust Oversight Team overseeing dormant Sussex Jan-linked charitable accounts. At least 3 U.S. Jan-based sponsors tied to Meghan are said to have placed funding on hold pending the outcome of legal reviews. One senior executive at a major fashion brand reportedly stated, "We can't align with reputational volatility. Meghan's risk profile shifted overnight. This wasn't only about Louise, it was about control." Meghan, insiders say, had tested the monarchy's long-standing silence. This time, Charles, backed by centuries of institutional authority, responded with precision. A rare royal alert code was issued. Triarchy C, family emergency, containment priority. By early afternoon, Princess Anne, Prince William, Princess Catherine, and Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, convened inside the Crimson Room at Windsor Castle. King Charles, still processing his classified morning briefing, authorized the closed Jan door summit with a single directive. Sophie will lead. Her daughter is under attack. She has full authority. Those present described the atmosphere as emotionally charged, yet strategically restrained. Sophie arrived directly from Bagshot Park, accompanied by Louise, who appeared pale and withdrawn, closely protected by palace aides, and kept entirely away from press exposure. Princess Catherine is said to have reached across the table, placing her hand over Sophie's. "She won't face this alone," Catherine reportedly said. "We stand together." Then Sophie rose to speak. The room fell silent. "She is threatening my child," Sophie said evenly. "This isn't PR. This isn't podcast material. This is psychological warfare." At that same hour, a fresh wave of British and American headlines began flooding social platforms. Daily Mirror insiders reported, Meghan threatens to leak video alleging misconduct by Louise Windsor's boyfriend, Palace furious. The Times followed, Windsor legal arm mobilizes for digital war. The Telegraph, Meghan's podcast under legal review amid threat allegations. Within hours, BuzzFeed and Rolling Stone added coverage, reporting that Meghan's planned March podcast episode would delve into alleged institutional betrayal and include a previously unreleased video said to be damaging to a young royal figure. While Meghan's team avoided naming Lady Louise directly, the implication was unmistakable. Felix Robert Dilva Clamp, Arsharar, is a soft, Jan-spoken British Jan-Swiss art history graduate, and Louise's longtime partner, known for his discretion. His background includes a research fellowship at the VFIA Museum, connections to a mid-Jan-tier European auction house, and recent vetting for projects adjacent to royal patronage. However, media Zan forensics analysts determined that a clip purporting to show Clamp in a compromising situation, allegedly filmed at a Downsennian Arshasen Mount Tudent event, had been digitally altered. Time, Zan shifted and enhanced. The manipulation was traced to a third Jan party subcontractor, once linked to Arkwell Studios, operating through a now Jan dissolved LLC. When this finding was presented during the Windsor Summit, one insider described Princess Anne's reaction as controlled fury. She reportedly muttered, "She wants to sell lies for attention, but she chose the wrong family." It was Sophie who proposed what is now being referred to internally as the Windsor Firewall, a 3-tier containment strategy. The plan includes immediate legal injunctions to block distribution of falsified material across Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. A carefully timed counter-narrative media appearance, with Catherine and Anne scheduled to visit a children's hospital in Oxford the following day. Louise included to Project Unity, Dignity, and Continuity submission of a digital evidence dossier, codenamed Felix -7, containing metadata proof of fabrication to 3 press watchdog organizations and Ofcom. Within 48 hours, Sophie closed the meeting with a final, decisive remark. "Meghan wants spectacle. We answer with silence, and the law. Nothing starves narcissism faster." By late evening, Sir Jonathan Wexford, representing the Buckingham Palace Legal Counsel, issued a confidential cease and desist notice to Meghan Markle's legal representatives in Los Angeles. According to leaked details, the letter contained a complete chain of custody forensic analysis of the manipulated video, an offer to resolve the matter privately, and a clear warning that failure to comply would result in defamation and malicious interference proceedings. It also reportedly cited Section 8 protections under the UK's revised Royal Defamation Act of 2024, emphasizing that any future targeting of minors or royal affiliates would trigger immediate escalation. Spotify, reportedly unsettled by references to fabricated sexual misconduct, swiftly flagged the episode under sensitive legal review. Internal Slack communications revealed growing alarm, with staff urging a full suspension of promotional activity until legal vetting was complete. Although Meghan's public-facing team maintained a defiant posture, sources close to her say panic set in privately once details of the Windsor Summit surfaced online. One senior PR advisor allegedly warned her, "If even half of this holds up, Spotify walks. You lose the redemption arc. You can't spin your way out. You'll be frozen." Internal Arkwell Slack channels soon reflected a pivot into crisis mode. Content teams were instructed to produce legacy, affirming narratives centered on motherhood, racial identity, and philanthropy. But a UK-based PR strategist dismissed the move bluntly. "You don't shift from sabotage to soft, focus motherhood in 24 hours. The palace isn't playing optics. They're constructing a legal fortress." By first light, the royal apparatus was already in motion. While Meghan's Los Angeles team prepared her podcast episode for internal testing ahead of its scheduled release, the monarchy activated Operation Blackwing, a rapid response digital strategy designed to neutralize media threats before publication. The catalyst was clear: the falsified video aimed at Lady Louise's partner, combined with Meghan's recent direct outreach to Princess Anne, demands that reportedly included diplomatic passports, VIP security, and restored royal privileges. She attempted to negotiate her way back into the crown using a threat, one source said. Instead, she triggered a full-spectrum media firewall. Quietly, the Princess of Wales Communications Director, Thomas Everhart, mobilized a discreet network of verified digital voices and royal allies to shape the narrative preemptively. Coordinated hashtags launched at 8 o'clock GMT. Number Protect Louise, number Royal Integrity, number Stand with Sophie, number Digital Defamation. Within 30 minutes, Protect Louise was trending across the UK and Canada. Established royal commentators: Emily Thornwell, BBC, Hugo Caro, ETV, and Nian Phillips. The Telegraph were circulating reports that Meghan's forthcoming podcast could include falsified material involving a member of the royal family. Royal supporters flooded Reddit and TikTok with forensic comparisons, highlighting inconsistencies between leaked footage and its metadata. This wasn't a leak, one digital analyst wrote. It was a coordinated interception of Meghan's narrative. As online backlash intensified, corporate partners began distancing themselves. Oasis Apparel placed Meghan's capsule collection under review and removed her imagery from its homepage. Ritual Wellness paused its March campaign tied to Arkwell's podcast rollout. Spotify's EU division reportedly froze advertising placements for the podcast trailer pending legal review. Several companies issued carefully worded statements affirming their commitment to ethical and responsible media partnerships. A leaked internal email from Spotify's UK office was more direct. We will not promote any episode carrying unresolved legal risk involving non-consenting individuals, particularly minors or members of the royal family. At 11:45 GMT, Lady Louise Windsor, accompanied by Sophie and Princess Catherine, arrived unannounced at Oxford Royal Children's Hospital. Dressed in a soft blue coat, Louise spoke quietly with pediatric cancer patients, comforted families, and posed alongside her mother and Catherine for photographs that rapidly dominated British media coverage. The storyline had shifted. Louise was no longer framed as a subject of controversy. She had become a symbol of composed resilience and quiet royal strength. That evening, the Daily Mail ran its front-page headline. They stood for her. Windsor shuts down smear campaign. At 14 o'clock GMT, Kensington Palace released an unusually firm legal notice to the press, jointly signed by 3 royal law firms and reviewed by GCHQ. The statement warned that any broadcast or circulation of manipulated material connected to Lady Louise Windsor, Felix Clamp, or their private lives would prompt immediate and full legal escalation under the UK's 2024 Royal Defamation Framework. It further confirmed that the palace possessed technical evidence of image fabrication and metadata tampering traced to a California-based contractor with previous links to Arkwell's media operations. The notice made clear that Princess Anne and Duchess Sophie had complete institutional and legal backing to pursue independent action. This was no longer a personal dispute. It had become a matter of digital security. One cybersecurity advisor described the situation bluntly: "The Crown is treating this as attempted reputational espionage." As pressure mounted, Meghan's team scrambled to regain control of the narrative, but found themselves increasingly isolated. A scheduled teaser clip for the podcast episode, uploaded at 19 o'clock GMT, drew more than 4,000 dislikes within its first 20 minutes, and was heavily ratioed across platforms. The comment sections turned brutal. "You tried to ruin a 22-year-old woman's life to claw your way back into royalty. Digital blackmail isn't activism. We see you, Meghan, and so does the Crown." Sources say Meghan began seriously reconsidering whether to release the episode at all, fearing that proceeding could permanently sever her remaining brand relationships. Yet, according to a Netflix insider, financial pressure from Spotify and podcast investors left little room to retreat. "She took the advance," one executive said. "Delivery is non-negotiable." "We're not killing the podcast," Meghan reportedly told her legal team, "but we may edit it aggressively." Still, royal analysts warned of an uncomfortable reality. Even a heavily redacted episode was still an episode, and the palace was scrutinizing every word. Despite escalating resistance, Meghan Markle released the episode early under the title Royal Truths, Power, Protection, and the Price of Silence. At 58 minutes, it was promoted as a brave reinterrogation of royal systems. Critics, however, quickly observed that it walked a dangerous line, blending personal grievance with insinuation that bordered on reputational harm. The most unsettling moment arrived at minute 36. In a lowered voice, Meghan remarked, "Sometimes silence isn't protection, it's complicity. Especially when young women are shielded from truths they don't even realize they're part of." Though neither Lady Louise Windsor nor Felix Clamp was named, the implication was widely seen as deliberate and unmistakable. Within 20 minutes of the episode going live, royal attorneys filed an emergency injunction with Spotify's EU headquarters, alleging intentional reputational targeting through suggestive language and indirect narrative framing. By 1 o'clock GMT, backlash had surged. The hashtag number exploitative podcast topped trends across the UK and Canada. BBC and Sky News issued breaking alerts, reporting that the palace was considering legal action over the episode's content. Spotify's internal legal division convened an emergency session to assess whether the release violated contractual goodwill clauses. Meanwhile, public reaction on Meghan's official podcast page turned sharply critical. Dragging a young woman's name through coded storytelling isn't journalism, it's a hit job. Why does Meghan always imply and never prove? She avoids names because naming them would end in court. At 19 o'clock GMT, a rare joint video address was released by Princess Anne and Princess Catherine. Filmed at Windsor Castle, the two stood side by side in what commentators immediately described as one of the most forceful royal responses in decades. Princess Anne spoke first, her tone unyielding. When the integrity of a young woman under our protection is exploited for someone else's redemption narrative, we are obligated to respond, not with spectacle, but with truth. Princess Catherine followed, composed and resolute. Lady Louise Windsor is not a storyline. She is not a pawn, and she is not afraid. Within the hour, every major UK newspaper featured the image of Anne and Catherine together, an unmistakable display of institutional unity framed as maternal defense. Later that afternoon, Duchess Sophie appeared on ITV's Afternoon Outlook. Speaking not only as a royal, but as a mother, her voice faltered briefly before steadying. "There is a boundary between media freedom and personal cruelty," she said. That boundary was crossed today. Sophie later confirmed that Louise had listened to the podcast. She acknowledged that her daughter was hurt, but not destabilized, and stressed that the family stood firmly collectively behind her. She concluded with a restrained yet resonant statement: "Royalty isn't earned through marriage. It's earned by standing up for one." At 16:45 GMT, Buckingham Palace released the findings of an independent forensic investigation conducted by a third-party digital media laboratory based in Brussels. The report determined that the video allegedly depicting Felix Clamp was 99.2% likely to be a deepfake, created using repurposed footage from a 2024 charity gala. Analysts confirmed the audio track had been artificially generated through AI voice cloning software. Metadata revealed clear signs of tampering dated the 22nd of January 2026, just 3 days before Meghan's initial outreach to Princess Anne. The conclusion was unequivocal. This was not journalism. It was a deliberately engineered act of slander. In a remarkable reversal of momentum, Lady Louise Windsor soon appeared publicly at the Royal College of St. George, where she delivered a keynote address on ethics, identity, and modern nobility. One line from her speech drew immediate attention: "Your name is not what others whisper about you. It is what you choose to say when they try to silence you." The audience rose in a sustained standing ovation. International media responded swiftly. From London to the New York Times, op-eds carried headlines such as "The Making of a Royal," "Louise Windsor Steps Forward," and "Dignity in the Face of Manipulation." On the 6th of March, Spotify issued a partial retraction and formal content advisory regarding Meghan's episode. The platform stated, "Following legal correspondence and audience feedback, Episode 1 of The Real Narrative will now include a disclaimer and revised audio edits, removing potentially defamatory implications." Insiders say Meghan was enraged by the decision, but contractually constrained, and has since begun reassessing her multi-show agreement. One producer, speaking off the record, offered a blunt assessment. She played the royal card once too often. What she didn't realize was the deck was never in her favor. While Meghan's brand suffered lasting damage, royal observers agree the more significant story unfolded afterward. The palace announced that Lady Louise Windsor would assume her first full-time royal patronage centered on youth media ethics and digital security. Felix Clamp, fully cleared of all allegations, will co-host an international summit on AI and reputational safety scheduled for May, and Princess Anne, closing her final public remarks on the matter, delivered a line that would echo well beyond the crisis itself. We did not merely defend a name, we defended the truth behind it.